Filippo introduce you to the area of nuclear energy and give you sort of an overview and a cost-benefit analysis for nuclear energy. This week we are going to be looking at another contemporary topic, economic downturn, and we try to relate to society, and we're going to be looking at a couple of different interesting things. So moving on to the final page. Right, what we're going to be doing, just have a look, brief introduction. We're just going to be looking at the sort of glossary, the terminology, words you might have read in the press quite a lot over the last couple of years. Then we are going to be looking at a case study, conspiracy theory, and then just be looking at briefly the credit crunch and a couple of key performance indicators. Then we're going to have a small, 5 minutes debate, and then we're going to be moving to sociology and looking at Maslow, and then we'll try to apply this model to contemporary economic affairs. We can move on to the next presentation. Just as a matter of interest, credit crunch has been recently added to the Oxford English Dictionary. Before getting to the hardcore stuff, I thought it was good to just set this terminology straight. And we're just going to look at a couple of them. You might be familiar with. So what we're going to be doing now, we're just going to be looking at something which happened about a century ago. The Federal Reserve. Right, in the early 20th century, the dominant families of the U.S. banking system were which is the same as today, really. The Rockefellers, the Morgans, and the other names I put on the board. Those guys wanted to set up a new central bank, but in order to do that, they had to affect public opinion. How do you affect public opinion? You create an incident. So in 1907, JP Morgan spread the rumor that a big New York bank was going bust, and also that had a dominant effect on the economy, which led to a sort of Senate Congress investigation, which, surprise, surprise, recommended the creation of a central bank, and that was agreed in 1913 when the newly elected U.S. President Wilson signed off the Federal Reserve Act. Through the introduction of a sort of concept in margin loans, access to credit and lending was easy, which sort of led to saturation of the lending market, and by the summer of 1929, the likes of Rockefeller and JP Morgan exited the market just a couple of months before the market turmoil. Now, moving on to the most recent economic affairs. It's been proven that the current recession has been originated by sort of a mortgage crisis. So, what led the subprime market to boom and then bust? Well, the market grew for a number of reasons, fueled by low interest rates, which sort of led people to, spend more money and buy bigger houses even if they couldn't really afford them, and more generally through the use of derivative instruments such as mortgage-backed securities, asset-backed securities, and CDOs and other derivative instruments, and banks were making big bucks. Now, what we're going to be looking at is sort of a little graph. I think it's kind of self-explanatory, to be honest. It kind of shows you, what happened over the last couple of years. So, we had excess housing inventory, obviously the supply of homes was better than the actual demand, which led to drop in housing prices, which had a knock-on effect on banks, and banks were making less profits. Some of them failed, such as Washington Mutual and Lehman. which led to a liquidity crisis, which led to the intervention of government and such as the 2008 stimulus act in the US, and led to the couple bailouts and obviously generic bank rescue of the banking system. This is a quote from the former US President Wilson, the guy who signed off the 1913 Federal Reserve Act. This guy was awarded in 1919 of a Nobel Peace Prize. There's a bit of coincidence with Mr. Obama. But I'm not going through the statement, I'm just going to read the first couple of lines. The great industrial nation is controlled by its system of credit, which is privately concentrated. The growth of the nation, of all our activities, are in the hands of very few men and bankers, who chill and check and destroy genuine economic freedom. Now, as I was researching this, comparing the build-up to the Great Depression, what happened in the last couple of years, I started thinking, I have reasons to believe that the current crisis, the so-called credit crunch, was deliberately created by the United States of America, by the Bush administration, in a desperate last resort attempt to prevent China and the Chinese economy to take over the USA as the world's largest economy.
You are neglecting the, economic factors, like, everybody was doing the wrong thing. At the same time, I think you are neglecting the, economic basis of this crisis. Like, how can we, politically...
I think Bush said it the best. He said, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. So with the Great Depression, all the organizations that were created after the Great Depression were put there. So we had these restrictions that were put there to make sure we never went into a mess like this again.